Bottleneck! That's right, Steven Universe is back with an all-new movie taking place 2 years after the events of the Season 5 finale, Change Your Mind, and that's all I'm going to say for now in case you're a weird person who clicked on this video without seeing the movie. Let it be known now, I will be spoiling a lot from this movie, and if you have not seen it yet, it is well worth your time if you're a fan of the series, if nothing else for the music. Anyway, we got a lot of ground to cover, and I'm not into wasting time, so with that spoiler warning out of the way, let's move right into the 5 most interesting things about Steven Universe, the movie. Despite taking place 2 years in the future, Steven Universe the movie is largely rooted in the past, with many references to the series proper, including small visual expressions of character development, iconic visual moments being replicated, and we even get to see OG Pilot Pearl for a hot second. The opening of the movie even features a recap song that not only details the very broad scope of the plot and character arcs for the primary characters, which I honestly found a bit irksome during my initial viewing. Even though it was done through a catchy song, it always feels a bit patronizing to have a movie from a popular series decide it feels the need to explain itself, but thankfully, it didn't take long into the movie to understand that there was thematic substance to this decision. Steven Universe the movie serves as a perfect transition into new material. It doesn't necessarily provide a lot of stuff for future content, but by resetting everyone to their factory settings, the movie allows itself to be able to reflect on the progress made throughout the show's first 5 seasons while combining it with a brand new conflict. Not only in the looming threat of the incubator, but in Spinel, since he's placed in the same exact position as the other main crystal gems, which not only makes it clear that eventually Spinel can grow past the antagonistic roles he saw the film as, but allows the conflict to not just feel like rehashing old material. Though the latter benefit is also accomplished through twisting the experiences that bring them back, like Sapphire saving Ruby this time. Most importantly though, this decision to focus the conflict on returning the gems to their prior selves strongly reinforces the main theme of the film, change. Not only does it highlight the growth of the main characters on the gone, but Steven's own arc in the film is getting over the idea of a happily ever after, realizing there'll always be work to do and the idea of an endless peace for all days isn't going to happen. That just resolving the diamond dictatorship doesn't mean all struggles are over, and he's going to need to continue to grow and change. It's no coincidence that the song featured in the climax of the film is Change, and is all about how much Steven has grown and how Spinel has the power to change as well. I also love the gradual shift in Steven's perspective over the concept of happily ever after, because the line the movie ends off on is happily ever after never ends. After accepting that struggles will always come his way, this line is an acknowledgement that those challenges won't end the happiness and love he's found in his life, because he can always overcome whatever obstacles Pink unintentionally made for him, because he can always change. We all can. Perhaps the most common thing to see after watching the movie was seeing people, myself included, lambasting Pink Diamond, and rightly so. At least to an extent, because it's undeniable that what Pink did to Spinel was just awful. But you know, I don't think it's right to harshly criticize her, as I've seen several do. For starters, there's the obvious note that Spinel attempted an entire planetary genocide, and yet the community is on her side by the film's end, which I'm not insulting people for feeling that way, because that compassion is the core of the show's DNA. I just feel like that should naturally extend to Pink as well. It just doesn't, because the movie in particular doesn't really frame her that way, but we've known about her character for quite some time. For starters, I've been referring to her as Pink specifically because Rose Quartz doesn't just represent a change in appearance, but a change in philosophy for her. Rose was not the same gem that abandoned Spinel, though admittedly Rose herself did exhibit some problems, like with Bismuth. Regardless, I don't believe Pink's decision to abandon Spinel came from malicious intent, but rather born from her desire to be seen as an equal to the other diamonds who treated her as a child, and there's no denying that Spinel clearly symbolized that impression of her. This does wisely parallel the two relationships, as Pink is now clearly viewing Spinel under the same lens the diamonds viewed her, as a child there for entertainment. Which makes the ending of the movie even more fitting, because the pain of losing Pink and the experience of meeting Steven has caused the diamonds to act way more affectionately than they did with Pink, and so Spinel would basically be receiving the relationship Pink originally strived for with the diamonds. Just really neat that Pink was essentially the Spinel to the diamonds and the diamond to Spinel, without her truly ever grasping the nature of their love for her. It's speculation, but I don't believe she would have actually expected Spinel to stand still for as long as he did. She proposed it as a game because Spinel wasn't giving her any space, not in order, so Spinel wasn't bound to follow those instructions like Pearl was on being quiet with Rose. She stood still all those years simply because of how much they cared for Pink, which, yeah, makes it extra tragic. but still within the realm of possibility that Pink might have assumed that Spinel wouldn't oblige to the horrific extent that she did. Ignoring that conjecture, people might be curious to why after her character development, did Rose never return for Spinel? Well, it's important to remember she essentially fabricated an entire war into existence, which led to the diamonds corrupting essentially every gem. She had a lot on her plate to deal with, and there was no real safe method of transporting back to Spinel. The warp pads were destroyed, and she couldn't exactly fly Pink Diamond ship right to her garden. Wouldn't exactly work as a covert operation. We don't really know the details of how Rose felt about Spinel, how heavily that weighed on her mind. She certainly carried a lot all on her own, and I'd be more surprised to learn that she didn't feel remorse for Spinel in hindsight, because he certainly expressed sorrow in the Drift Away sequence, as the last image of Pink shown is meant to represent the last time she saw Spinel, as the prior images highlight the transition in their relationship. Beginning with Pink gleefully laughing with her, followed by her clearly growing away from Spinel's sense of humor, it's only logical that the final vision would be Spinel's last, to fully represent the transition. This is a side tangent, but I love how the scene emphasizes their drifting apart by focusing on Pink's body language as well as her expressions. In the first instance, she is fully facing towards Spinel, while in the last her back is completely turned to her, with the second being the shift. Not fully facing Spinel, but not with her back against her either. It's one of the best visual moments in the movie. I suppose in conclusion, I find getting more insight into Rose Quartz / Pink Diamond to be consistently fascinating, and I find both the memes and the discussion surrounding her to be entertaining. I just need to put forth my 2 cents on the matter, since I feel like the popular opinion at the moment sways way more negatively towards her than I feel is justified. How was Onion able to be in all the places Lion was when they were searching for Amethyst? Can he teleport? Is he just ridiculously fast? Did he make clones of himself? Would that explain why he didn't age at all in 2 years? I get why most of the Beach City residents didn't age. Most of them are too old to show visible growth in 2 years, and Lars is a zombie. But Onion? He is not human. Clearly Lion wasted his time saving this thing at the end. He would have been fine. Steven Universe the movie is a musical, the second they've ever done, and I'm not here to talk about the music because, come on, it's Steven Universe, of course it's great. My favorites being Other Friends, Drift Away, True Kinda Love, Independent Together, and Isn't It Love? Obs. For what it's worth though. But all the songs are fantastic and have highlight moments within them. Instead, I was to discuss how well this musical is constructed, because a good musical isn't just a story where people sing plot points with a collection of different melodies. It's not just about populating the story with great songs. There needs to be a cohesion to the song. There needs to be proper pacing between songs. There needs to be structural callbacks in the form of reprisals that ideally would recontextualize the meaning on their previous iterations. This is their second musical too. Their first, Mr. Greg, which I've already discussed in detail, is one of the best episodes in the whole series, so I had a lot of faith going into this one, and of course, they delivered. For starters, the songs are not singular entities. They carry over into several different tunes regardless of whether it's a side reprise or not. Happily Ever After notably kicks off Who We Are. The reprise of Let Us Adore You has Spinel continue off in the lyrics of Found. And Finale, of course, does a fantastic job of bookending the movie with essentially a new version of Happily Ever After interwoven with Chains, which again is the most important song thematically. There's also a neat lyrical motif with the word game. In Other Friends, Spinel sings that she's the loser of the game they didn't even know they were playing. This is notably the song where she dominates the crystal gems in combat. Much later in the film, when we get Garnet back, she directly dismisses Spinel's notion with the lyrics combating it, such as, everybody's looking for someone to blame, like it's a game, and now I'm better than win or lose. This is of course being sung during the period that the crystal gems are clearly in control of the battle with Spinel. But the musical greatness continues even further than that, because there's a great musical semblance when it comes to the characters themselves. I'm terrible at describing sound, so bear with me, but again, both Spinel and Garnet have obvious musical connections to their characters. Spinel has this distorted musical notes at the beginning of both of her songs, Other Friends and Drift Away, and that note even plays briefly before her part in Let Us Adore You reprise, making her presence a lot more musically cohesive due to maintaining this same beginning throughout the songs, though there are differences to reflect the mood. Other Friends is the longest and most twisted sounding of them, Drift Away being the most melancholy, and Let Us Adore You reprise having the sorest duration before being overpowered by the song's melody is a really cool way to showcase her change.
Easy to get along with.
Today.
As for Garnet, it's a little less interesting, but still adds a lot of presence to her songs and character, but Garnet's songs are defined by humming. This extends beyond the movie, as in something entirely new, Sapphire and Ruby both hummed Stronger Than You right at the end before they fused. This continues here with Isn't It Love featuring those backing vocals oohs after almost every line, which I know isn't technically humming, but you get what I mean. Turning those syllables into the smooth humming-like process. Like once we get Garnet back, True Kind of Love incorporates the same type of sound as those backing vocals, except this time up front in the chorus during the word true, which is a nice way to musically nod to the gradual return of Garnet, with their first experience having it on the side, only later to come back in full flux. The main reason why I don't think I'm thinking way too deep into the musical choices is because during the opening number Happily Ever After, there's only one point in the song where instead of singing, Steven hums the chorus, and that is right before he meets up with Garnet. Considering nobody else does that kind of vocal elongation outside of this instance, it all feels like a deliberate choice to tie a particular sound to Garnet, and they already did that much more blatantly with Spinell, so yeah, I was really impressed with just how well constructed the entire musical side of the story is. Spinell is the best antagonist in Steven Universe thus far, and is probably the strongest element in the movie. And to be honest, there isn't really much I need to address here because a lot of the stuff that made Spinell fascinating bled over into my other segments. With thematic parallels with Steven, I always feel the best antagonist needs to, in some way, hold a mirror to the protagonist, and they do a fantastic job with the aforementioned theme of change with Steven, although it also makes her the thematic backbone of the movie. The aforementioned stuff with Big Diamond is fascinating to talk about, and her role in the relationship dynamics with Pink and the other diamonds is great. She had nothing to do with Onion, which is lucky for her. And I feel like she has the most interesting cohesive element behind her songs. There really isn't much more to analyze about her, and that actually speaks volumes to how integral her character was to the film because all the best components lead back to her. Still though, I'd be crazy not to mention her fantastic design, animation, and voice acting. Zia Stiles does a great job capturing both the tormented and happy-go-lucky versions of Spinell. She's another stellar addition to the cast, and I don't think the character would have worked as well under the lungs of somebody else. In both her design and animation evoking rubber hose animation from like the 1930s, both works wonderfully to symbolize her left behind archaic story, as well as making the action sequences more vibrant than they've ever been. Due to her abilities, Steven Universe the movie features the best action sequences in the franchise yet, aside from Crack the Whip. There's just so much buoyancy to her movements, so much versatility in her moveset, that it's a lot more engaging to watch as the viewer. And both her character designs are great, and the disparity between the two do a great job of displaying the emotional damage. The more cut, rigid hair as opposed to the Mickey Mouse hearts. The upside down heart is the most blatantly apparent change, but it's still a nice touch. And as one last note, I love the Sailor Moon-esque magical girl transformation when Spinell finally gets the full picture. And those were the 5 most interesting things about Steven Universe the movie. An absolutely fantastic film that may just be the most impressive accomplishment of the crew yet, though don't confuse that statement with this being my favorite Steven Universe thing. Although it very well might be. They hit it out of the park with this movie, and I didn't even mention Stag. There's so many good things in this movie, and even though Steven Universe feels completed, knowing there's more is actually exciting rather than worrying that they'll just ruin it, because the Crewniverse have my complete faith. And after something as good as this movie, how could they not?